Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Wine with Jimmy channel here on YouTube and my e-learning portal at www.winewithjimmy.com. So welcome to the educational channel here that helps those of you wanting to learn more about wine, and specifically for those going through their wine studies, such as the WSET. So here we have a series of videos on sweet wine making from viticulture in terms of the WSET Level 4 Diploma. So the all-challenging and all-encompassing Level 4 Diploma. If you do have any comments, concerns, questions with this video, please pop them in the comments section below. And whilst you're commenting, there's a button there to click subscribe and another one to like the video. Please make sure you do that. You can also get in touch with me by other means if you're that way inclined, by social media. You see that at the bottom of every slide. Also by visiting winewithjimmy.com, where you can email us on the contact us part of the website. Okie dokie, let's begin with the world of sweet wine making, and let's have a look at our first page in just a moment. So sweet wines, what are they? Well, these are wines with residual sugar, of course, and they encompass a large range of styles. Some inexpensive sweet wines contain low to moderate levels of residual sugar that makes them more appealing and more palatable to a wider, larger consumer market. And at the other end of the spectrum, there are the thick, viscous, syrupy style wines that have often 100, 200, 300 grams per litre of sugar, and they are the very complex styles. So you get lightly sweet all the way up to unctuously, viscously sweet, of course. So we're going to go through all of those. Here is your lineup. Now, this section is split into 5 parts. This part is a free video available on the world of YouTube, where you are right now, or we have the parts 2 to 5. They are only available on the e-learning portal at winewithjimmy.com. So if you wanted to follow on and learn everything at the diploma level about the world of sweet winemaking, then it is going to be only available on the e-learning portal. Please make sure you visit and subscribe. So concentrating the grape must is on this section. So we're going to really just do the introduction and talk about really the general concepts around concentrating the grape must. But there are other processes as well. Now, there is separate videos on stopping fermentation early, for example. That is on future videos, not a part of this section, which is about viticultural concepts of sweet wine making. So really concentrating the sugar via viticulture. Okay, so let's begin. Now, the choice of the method for obtaining our sweet wine will really be determined by the style, by the quality, by the price of the wine that the winemaker, what he or she wants to make, but also things like the climate of the vineyard, and how that would dictate what kind of method. You know, maybe freezing of the grapes, maybe noble rot, for example, drying the grape on the vine or off the vine, and so on. Also a thing to think about is the local wine legislation. If you are looking to produce a certain label with a classification, then there may be certain rules and parameters around what methodology you must adopt to produce your sweet wine. The objective, of course, is to produce a balanced wine. So that's balance between 2 fundamental key characteristics. The sugar, of course, because it's a sweet wine, but the all-important acidity, which offers a counterpoint of freshness against the rich character of sweetness. And that's important. For me, a very high quality sweet wine is one that has the acidity to balance that sugar. And I find sweet wines that lack in the acidity are what you would call often maybe flabby, and they really do lack that, that counterpoint of freshness. So let's talk about naturally stopping fermentation. So this is the method used to produce many sweet and luscious styles of wine around the world. The concentration of sugars in the grape must may be so sufficient to arrest or stop the fermentation before reaching dryness. The yeast will struggle and struggle in these very sugar-rich environments, especially also as alcohol starts to be produced. You have loads of viscous sugar, and then you have the alcohol being produced, and it becomes quite a toxic environment for the yeast. So this will end up naturally stopping the fermentation even at relatively low levels of alcohol. And just thinking logically about this, with so much sugar in the must, it is often impossible to fully ferment these to dryness, as the potential alcohol could be in excess of 20% ABV. And as you know, it is impossible for yeast to ferment to that levels. Mainly impossible. There are a few notable differences, but that's very, very rare. So other methods as well. So the fermentation can also be stopped prematurely by chilling and adding sulfur dioxide and then filtering to remove the yeast. This is going to be covered on my video about stopping fermentation, which comes after this whole series. And this gives the winemaker greater control over the balance of alcohol and sweetness. So here you've got some grapes which are going to be pressed into a must. They start to get fermented, that's the fermentation vat, but then at some point they could be chilled down and or sulfur dioxide added to it to stop the fermentation early. Then the yeast that has stopped is filtered out and you have a sweet wine. This is typically a process that is done for lower alcohol sweet wines, such as white Zinfandels and white Grenaches that you find from places like California, for example. Okay, so what happens then as we produce this? Now, the grape must is concentrated by the reduction of water content in the grape. So either by processes like noble rot or drying the grapes, we find that the water content is reduced. And hence this not only concentrates the sugar, obviously, it also concentrates other grape components such as the acidity and the flavour aroma. So that's what we've got on the left, an increase in sugar, flavour and acidity. And that's really because the water component has evaporated, or it's been very much decreased, heightening the other components like sugar, flavour and acidity, for example. The increase in acidity and also the flavours and aromas helps to keep these wines in balance so that the sweetness does not become too dominant. And this is a key reason that so many wines made via these methods we're going to go through are often very good to outstanding, because they do achieve such levels of complexity at the same time of intensity and also balance. So very, very important. And of course, what will eventually develop in these wines is the length. It's often the length which determines whether it's going to be very good or outstanding in many examples of these wines. Now, also, the methodology of removing the water to concentrate things like sugars can add its own flavors to the array of aromas and flavor compounds. So, for example, if you dry the grapes off the vine, so maybe in baskets or in certain buildings in Italy, the passito process, for example, this can lead typically to flavors of dried fruits. So maybe you've tried a Recioto della Valpolicella, which you get that very much dried apricot note. Maybe you've tried one of the reds of Amarone, where you get that very sort of dried raisiny characteristics as well. These wines can have more complexity than those simply made by stopping fermentation by the chilling or by adding the sweet component method. So you'll find more layers of aroma and flavour complexity through these things like dried fruits, things like dried apricots, for example. Okay, and our final slide is the cost on these. Now, because the water is depleted, the volume of the juice, the total liquid that is obtained from the grapes, is low. And that, of course, means there's a reduction in volume. And that reduction in volume, you can see just by, I've given you a healthy set of grapes on the left and then a dried or nobly rotted bunch of grapes on the right, and you can see that there is probably a reduction there of about 50%. It's often even more than that. And of course, this loss of volume is going to mean there's less produced. Also, the very, very sugary pulp, all of that, the juice, the sugary juice, is often very hard to extract the juice from the pulp during the pressing stage. These factors, both the loss of volume and the extraction of the juice from the pulp being challenging, means that this adds to the cost of production, which means, of course, the wines in turn are going to be premium or super premium. So they're going to be very expensive wines indeed. So I hope you've enjoyed the introduction to this series on sweet wine making from Viticulture. If you do have any comments, questions or concerns, please get in touch. You can get in touch by commenting on this video below on the world of YouTube. Please make sure you click subscribe and like as well whilst you are in the world of commenting. Also check out the social media or visit the website winewithjimmy.com for more information. Remember, parts 2 to 5 are coming up on drying the grapes on the vine, off the vine, noble rot, and freezing the grapes. They are only available to members of the e-learning portal at winewithjimmy.com. Please visit there to have a look and see if you would like to subscribe. If you do find yourself in the wonderful country of England and you are in the capital city of London, you know I've got wine schools and a wine bar, so come and see me for a class, for a glass or a bottle. I've been Jimmy Smith. Ciao for now.